Okay, Abraxas flew. What else happened? Abraxas flew. Selena has control, sort of. Rowan is fine. Hi, Sarah. But that's right, because they don't know that the fleshies, I'm gonna call them fleshies, are coming at them. Little zombie things, whatever the hell they are. They're coming their way. I'm scared. I'm scared of how they're gonna attack, or like how they're gonna get the news that these things are invading. So, and they don't know why Selena's there, right? The reason that she was sent. But I don't think that matters. They wouldn't think that she would actually go through with it, right? I don't think they would. I think they know that she's smarter than that. Hopefully. So, all right. We're gonna start with chapter 45. We're on page 387. Yeah, okay. To their credit, the sentries didn't jump when Rowan shifted beside them atop the battlement wall. They had eyes keen enough to have detected his arrival as he swooped in. A slight tang of fear leaked from them, but that was to be expected, even if it troubled him more than it had in the past. But they did stir slightly when he spoke. How long has she been down there? An hour, Prince, one said, watching the flashing flames below. For how many mornings in a row? This is the fourth, Prince, the same sentry replied. The first 3 days she'd slipped from bed before dawn, he'd assumed she'd been helping in the kitchens. But when they trained yesterday, she'd improved at a rate she shouldn't have, as if overnight. He had to give her credit for resourcefulness. The girl stood outside the ward stones, fighting with herself. A dagger of flame flew from her hand toward the invisible barrier between two stones, then another, as if racing for the head of an opponent. It hit the magic wall with a flash of light and bounced back, reflected off the protective spell encircling the fortress. And when it reached her, she shielded, swift, strong, sure, a warrior on a battlefield. Of course she is. I've never seen anyone fight like that, the sentry said. It was a question, but Rowan didn't bother to answer. It wasn't their business, and he wasn't entirely certain if his queen would be pleased with the demi-fae learning to use their powers in such a way, though he fully planned to tell Lorcan, his commander, and the only male who outranked him in Dornell, just to see whether they could use it in their training. The girl moved from throwing weapons to hand-to-hand oh my god. Sorry, y'all. I took a COVID test today, and my nose is like, it feels all loose. Oh, and tickly still. But I am negative, in case anyone was wondering. I know I had said that I had been exposed, but I am negative. The girl moved from throwing weapons to hand-to-hand combat, a punch of power, a sweeping kick of flame. Her flames had become gloriously varied, golds and reds and oranges. And her technique, not the magic, but the way she moved. Her master had been a monster, there was no doubt of that, but he had trained her thoroughly. She ducked and flipped and twisted, relentless, raging, and she swore with her usual color as the wall sent a punch of ruby flame back at her. She managed to shield, but still got knocked on her ass, yet none of the sentries laughed. Rowan didn't know if it was because of his presence or because of her. He got his answer a heartbeat later, as he waited for her to shout or shriek or walk away, but the princess just slowly got to her feet, not bothering to brush off the dirt and leaves, and kept practicing. The next corpse appeared a week later, setting a rather wretched tone for the crisp spring morning as Selena and Rowan ran for the site. They'd spent the past week fighting and defending and manipulating her magic, interrupted only by a rather miserable visit from some Fae nobility traveling through the area, which left Selena in no hurry to set foot in Dornell. Thankfully, the guests stayed for one night, hardly disrupting her lessons. They worked only with fire, ignoring the drop of water affinity that she'd been given. She tried again and again to summon the water when she was drinking, while in the bath, when it rained, but to no avail. Fire it was then. And while she knew Rowan was aware of her early morning practicing, she never lightened her training, though she could have sworn she occasionally felt their magic, playing together, her flame taunting his ice, his wind dancing amongst her embers. But each morning brought something new, something harder and different and miserable. God, she was brilliant, cunning and wicked and brilliant. even when he beat the hell out of her, every damn day. Not for malice, not like it had been before, but to prove his point. Her enemies would give no quarter. If she needed to pause, if her power faltered, she died. So he knocked her into the mud, or the stream, or the grass, with a blast of wind or ice. So she rose, shooting arrows of flame, her shield now her strongest ally, again and again, hungry and exhausted and soaking with rain and mist and sweat, until shielding was an instinct, until she could hurl arrows and daggers of flame together, until she knocked him on his ass. There was always more to learn. She lived and breathed and dreamt of fire. Sometimes, though, her dreams were more of a brown-eyed man in an empire across the sea. Sometimes she'd awaken and reach for the warm male body beside hers, only to realize it was not the captain, that she would she would never again lie next to Kao, not after what had happened. And when she remembered that, it sometimes hurt to breathe. There was nothing romantic about sharing a bed with Rowan, her cousin, and they kept to their own sides. There certainly was nothing romantic about it when they reached the side of the corpse and she peeled off her shirt to cool down. In nothing but her underclothes, Selena's skin was bitten by the sea air with a delightful chill, and even Rowan unbuttoned his heavy jacket as they carefully approached the coordinates. "Well, I can certainly smell him this time," Selena said between panting breaths. They'd reached the site in little less than 3 hours, guessing by the sun. That was faster and longer than she'd ever run, thanks to the Fae form she'd been training in. His body's been rotting her longer than the Demi-Fae from 3 days ago. She bit back her retort. There had been another Demi-Fae body found, and he hadn't let her go see it, instead forcing her to practice all day while he flew to the site. But this morning, he'd taken one look at the fire smoldering in her eyes and relented. Selena stepped carefully on the pine carpet, scanning for any signs of a fight or the attacker. The ground was churned up, and despite the rushing stream, the flies were buzzing near what appeared to be a heap of clothing, peeking from behind a small boulder. Rowan swore, low and viciously, even lifting his forearm to cover his nose and mouth as he examined the husk that remained. The Demi-Fae male's face twisted in horror. Selena might have done the same, except that second smell was here too. Not as strong as it had been at the first sight, but it lingered. She shoved back against the memory that wanted to rise in response to the smell, the memory that had overwhelmed her the day in the barrow field. "It has our attention, and it knows it," she said. "It's targeting Demi-Fae, either to send a message or because they taste good." But she pictured the map Rowan kept in his room, detailing the wide area where the corpses had been found, and winced. What if there's more than one? Rowan looked back at her, brows high. She didn't say anything else until she had moved to where he stood by the body, careful not to disturb any clues. Her stomach lurched, and a bile stung the back of her throat, but she clamped down on the horror with the wall of ice that even her fire could not melt. "You're old as hell," she said. "You must have considered that we're dealing with a few of them, given how vast the territory is. What if the one we saw in the barrows wasn't even the creature responsible for these bodies?" He narrowed his eyes, but conceded a nod. She studied the hollowed-out face, the torn clothes, what looked like small cuts along the palms, as if he'd dug in his fingernails. The others had barely been touched, but this... "Rowan," she waved away the flies. "Rowan, tell me you see what I'm seeing." Another vicious curse. He crouched, using the tip of a dagger to push back a bit of clothing torn at the collar. This male fought. He fought back against it. None of the others did, according to their reports. The stench and the corpse was nearly enough to bring her to her knees, but she squatted by the decaying hand and forearm, shriveled and wasted from the inside out. She held out a hand for Rowan's dagger, still possessing none of her own. He hesitated as she looked up at him. "Only for the afternoon," he seemed to growl as he pressed the hilt into her open palm. She yanked down the dagger. I know. I haven't earned my weapons back yet. Don't get your feathers ruffled." She turned back to the husk, cutting off their wordless conversation and getting a snarl in response. Butting heads with Rowan was the least of her concerns, even if it had become one of her favorite activities. There was something so familiar about doing this, she thought, as she carefully, as gently and respectfully as she could, ran the tip of the dagger under the male's cracked and filthy nails, then smeared the contents on the back of her own hand. Dirt and black. Black... What the hell is that? Rowan demanded, kneeling beside her, sniffing her outstretched hand. He jerked back, snarling. "That's not dirt." No, it wasn't. It was blacker than night, and reeked just as badly as it had the first time she'd smelled it, in the catacombs beneath the library, an obsidian, oily pool of blood. Slightly different from that other horrific smell that loitered around this place, but similar. So similar to... This isn't possible, she said, jolting to her feet. This... Oh, they're already there. Oh, they're already there. Wait. They're already there? Hold on. What? What? She paced, if only to keep from shaking. I'm wrong. I have to be wrong. There had been so many cells in that forgotten dungeon beneath the library, beneath the king's wordstone clock tower. The creature she'd encountered there had possessed a human heart. It had been left, she suspected, because of some defect. What if the perfected ones had been moved elsewhere? What if they were now ready? Tell me, Rowan growled, the words barely understandable as he seemed to struggle to rein in the killing edge he rode in response to the threat lurking somewhere in these woods. She lifted her hand to rub her eyes, but realized what was on her fingers and went to wipe them on her shirt, only to recall that she was wearing nothing but the soft white band around her breasts, and that she was cold to her very bones. She rushed to the nearby stream to scrub off the dried black blood, hating even that the trace of it would be in the water, in the world, and quietly told Rowan of the creature in the library, the word keys, and the information Maeve held hostage regarding how to destroy that power. Power that was being used by the king to make things, and targeting people with magic in their blood to be their hosts. A warm breeze wrapped around her, heating her bones and blood, steadying her. How did it get here? Rowan asked, his features now set with icy calm. I don't know. I hope I'm wrong, but that smell... I'll never forget that smell as long as I live. Like it had rotted from the inside out, its very essence ruined. But it retains some cognitive abilities, and whatever this is, it must have them too if it's dumping the bodies. She tried to swallow, twice, but her mouth was dry. Demi-Fae. They would make perfect hosts, with so many of them able to use magic and no one in Wendlyn or Dornell caring if they live or die. But these corpses, if he wanted to kidnap them, why kill them? Unless they weren't compatible, Rowan said. And if they weren't compatible, then what better use for them than to drain them dry? But what's the point of leaving the bodies where we can find them? To drum up fear? Rowan ground his jaw and stalked through the area, examining the ground, the trees, the rocks. Burn the body, Aelin. He removed the sheath and belt that had housed the daggers still dangling from her hand and tossed them to her. She caught them with her free hand. We're going hunting. They found nothing. Even when Rowan shifted into his other form and circled high above, as the light grew dim, they climbed into the biggest, densest tree in the area. They squeezed onto a massive branch, huddled together, as he would not let her summon even a flicker of flame. When she complained about the conditions, Rowan pointed out that there was no moon that night, and worse things than skinwalkers Not y'all making me say that word. Ow! I don't even real... Prowl of the woods. My bad. God! No! No, I'm scared. That shut her up, until he asked her to tell him more about the creature in the library, to explain every detail and weakness and strength. After she finished, he took out one of his long knives, a fraction of the marvelous assortment he carried, and began cleaning it. With her heightened senses, she could see enough in the starlight to make out the steel, his hands and the shifting muscles in his shoulders as he wiped the blade. He himself was a beautiful weapon, forged by centuries of ruthless training and warring. Yeah. Do you think I was mistaken? She said, as he put away the knife and reached for the ones hidden beneath his clothes. Like the first, none of them were dirty, but she didn't point that out. About the creature, I mean. Rowan slung his shirt over his head to get the weapon strapped beneath, revealing his broad back, muscled and scarred and glorious. Fine. Some very feminine, innate part of her appreciated that. And she didn't mind his half-nakedness. He'd seen every inch of her now. She supposed there was no part of him that would be much of a surprise either, thanks to Kale. But no, she wouldn't think about Kale. Not when she was feeling balanced and clear-headed and good. We're dealing with a cunning, lethal predator, regardless of where it originated and how many there are, he said, cleaning a small dagger that had been strapped across his pectoral muscle. She followed the path of his tattoo down his face, neck, shoulders, and arm. Such a stark, brutal marking. Had the scars on Cale's face healed, or would they be a permanent reminder of what she'd done to him? If you were mistaken, I'd consider it a blessing. She slumped against the trunk. That was twice now she thought of Cale. She must truly be exhausted, because the only other option was that she just wanted to make herself feel miserable. She didn't want to know what Cale had been doing these months, or what he now thought of her. If he'd sold the information about her past to the king, maybe the king had sent one of those things here to hunt her. And Dorian... God, she'd been so lost in her own misery that she'd hardly wondered about him, whether he'd managed to keep his magic secret. She prayed he was safe. She suffered with her own thoughts until Rowan finished with his weapons, then took out their skin of water and rinsed his hands, neck, and chest. She watched him sidelong, the way the water gleamed on his skin in the starlight. It was a damn good thing Rowan had no interest in her either, because she knew she was stupid and reckless enough to consider whether moving on in the physical sense might solve the problem of Cale with her cousin. There was still such a mighty hole in her chest, a hole that grew bigger, not smaller, and that no one could fix, not even if she took Rowan to bed. There were some days when the amethyst ring was her most precious belonging. Others when it was all she could do not to melt it down in a flame of her own making. Why the fuck is this truck parking next to me? Maybe she had been a fool to love a man who served the king, but Cale had been what she needed after losing Sam, after surviving the mines. These days, she didn't know what she needed, what she wanted. If she felt like admitting it, she actually didn't have the faintest clue who the hell she was anymore. All she knew was that whatever and whoever climbed out of that abyss of despair and grief would not be the same person who had plummeted in, and maybe that was a good thing. Rowan put his clothes back on and settled against the trunk, his body warm and solid against hers. They sat in the dark for a little until she said quietly, "You once told me that when you find your mate, you can't stomach the idea of hurting them physically. Once you're mated, you'd sooner harm yourself." "Yes. Why?" "I tried to kill him. I mauled his face, then held a dagger over his heart because I thought he was responsible for Nehemiah's death. I would have done it if someone hadn't stopped me. If he'd truly been my mate, I wouldn't have been able to do that, would I?" He was silent for a long while. "You hadn't been in your Fae form for 10 years, so perhaps your instincts weren't even able to take hold. Sometimes mates can be together intimately before the actual bond snaps into place. It's useless hope to cling to anyway. Do you want the truth?" She tucked her chin into her tunic and closed her eyes. "Not tonight." Chapter 46. Shielding her eyes from the glare, Selena scanned the cliffs and the spit of beach far below. It was scorching, with hardly a breeze, but Rowan remained in his heavy pale gray jacket and wide belt, vambraces strapped to his forearms. He deigned to give her a few of his weapons that morning, as a precaution. They'd returned to the latest site at dawn to retrace their steps, and that was where Selena had picked up a trail. Well, she'd spied a droplet of dark blood on a nearby rock, and then Rowan had followed the scent toward the cliffs. She looked down the beach at the natural cut arches of the many caves along its curving length, but there was nothing here, and the trail, thanks to the sea and wind and elements, had gone cold. They'd been here for the past half hour, looking for any other signs, but there was nothing. Nothing except there, a sagging curve in the cliff edge, as if many pairs of feet had worn the lip down as they slid carefully over the edge. Rowan gripped her arm as she leaned to view the crumbled, hidden stair. She glared at him, but he didn't let go. "I'm trying not to be insulted," she said. "Look." There were hardly steps now, just lumps of rock and sand peppered with shrubs. The water beyond the beach was so clear and calm that a slight break could be seen in the barrier reef that guarded these shores. It was one of the few ways to make a safe landing here without shattering your boat, only wide enough for a small craft to pass through. No warships or merchant vessels would fit. Undoubtedly, one reason this area had never been developed. It was the perfect place, however, if you wanted to surreptitiously enter the country and stay hidden. She began sketching in the sandy earth, a long, hard line, then drew dot after dot after dot. The bodies were dumped in streams and rivers, she said. The sea was never far off, he said, kneeling beside her. They could have dumped the bodies there, but then those bodies probably would drift back to the shore and prompt people to look along the beach. Look here, she said, pointing to the stretch of coastline she'd sketched, and where they were currently sitting, smack dab in the middle of it. There are countless caves along this section of the shore. She indicated where the waves broke on the reef and the small, calm spaces between them. It's an easy access point from... She swore. She couldn't say it. There were no ships along here, but that didn't mean that one or two or more couldn't have come from Ardalan, sneaking in at night and slipped in their violent, vicious cargo using smaller boats. Rowan stood. We're leaving. Now. Don't you think they would already have attacked if they'd seen us? Rowan pointed to the sun. If he was about to tell her it wasn't safe for a queen to be throwing herself into danger, then he could... If we're going to explore, then we're going to do it under the cover of darkness. So we're going back to the stream, and we're going to find something to eat. And then, Princess, he said with a wild grin, we're going to have some fun. Some god must have decided to take pity on them, because the rain started right after sunset, thundering clouds rolling in with a vengeance to conceal any sound they made as they returned to the beach and began a thorough search of the caves. But that was about where their favor from the gods ended, because what they found, while lying on their bellies on a narrow cliff overhanging a barren beach, was worse than anything they'd anticipated. It wasn't only monsters of the king's making. It was a host of soldiers. A few men came out of the massive cave mouth, which was camouflaged among the rocks and sand. They might have missed them, had it not been for Rowan's keen sense of smell. He did not have the words, he said, to describe what the smell was like, but she knew it. Selena's mouth had gone dry, her stomach a knot as the dark figures slipped in and out of the cave with disciplined, economic movements that suggested they were highly trained. They weren't rabid, half-feral monsters like the one in the library, or cold, flawless creatures like what she'd seen in the barrows, but mortal soldiers, all of them aware, disciplined, ruthless. The crabmonger, Selena murmured to Rowan. In the village. He said he found weapons in his nets. They must be taking ships and then getting close enough to swim through the reef without attracting attention. We need to get a closer look. She raised her brows at Rowan, who gave her a hunter's smile. I knew you'd be useful someday. Rowan just snorted and shifted, a flicker of light that she hoped was gobbled up by the storm. He flapped over the cliff edge and glided across the water, nothing more than a predator looking for a meal, then circled back until he rested on a rock just beyond the breaking waves. She watched him hunt, moving toward the cave itself, an animal looking for shelter from the rain, and then, keeping close to the towering ceiling of the cave, he swept inside. She didn't breathe the entire time he was out of her sight. She counted the gaps between the thunder and the lightning, her fingers itching to grab onto the hilt of her sword. But at long last, Rowan swooped out of the cave in a leisurely flight. He made his way up to her then, flew past, heading into the woods, a message to follow. Carefully, she dragged herself through the dirt and mud and rocks until she was far enough away to slip between the trees. She followed Rowan for a ways, the forest growing denser, the rain masking all sounds. She found him standing with crossed arms against a gnarled pine. There are about 200 mortal soldiers and 3 of those creatures in the caves. There's a hidden network of them along the shore. Her throat closed up. She made herself wait for him to go on. They're under the command of someone called General Narak. The soldiers all look highly trained, but they keep well away from the three creatures. Rowan wiped at his nose, and in the flash of lightning she beheld the blood. You were right. The 3 creatures look like men, but they aren't men. Whatever dwells inside their skin is... disgusting isn't the right word. It was as if my magic, my blood, my very essence was repelled by them. He examined the blood on his fingers. All of them seemed to be waiting. 3 of those things. Just one had nearly killed her. Waiting for what? Rowan's animal eyes glowed as they fixed on her. Why don't you tell me? The king never said anything about this. He... Had something gone wrong in Ardalan? Had Kael somehow told the king and who and what she was, and the king sent these men here to... No. It had to have taken weeks, months to get these creatures smuggled here. Send word for Wendellin's forces. Warn them right now. Even if I reached Varese tomorrow, it could take over a week to get here on foot. Most of the units have been deployed in the north all spring. We still need to warn them that there's a risk, that they're at risk. Use your head. There are endless caves and places to hide along the western coastline, and yet they pick here, this access point. She visualized the map of the area. The mountain road will take them past the fortress. Her blood chilled, and even her magic, flickering in an attempt to soothe her, could not warm her inside. No, not past, to the fortress. They're going after the Demi-Fae. A slow, grave nod. I think those bodies we found were experiments, to learn the weaknesses and strengths of the Demi-Fae, to learn which ones were compatible with whatever it is they do to warp beings. With these numbers, I'd suggest this unit was sent here to capture and retrieve the Demi-Fae, or to wipe out a potential threat. Because if they could not be converted and enslaved to Ardalan, then the Demi-Fae could be convinced to potentially fight for Wendelin in a war. They could be the strongest warriors in Wendellin's forces, and cause more than a bit of trouble for Ardalan as a result. She lifted her chin and said, "Then right now we'll go down to that beach and unleash our magic on them all, while they're sleeping." She turned, even as a part of her soul started bucking and thrashing at the thought of it. Rowan grabbed her elbow. If I had thought there was a way to do it, I would have suffocated them all, but we can't. Not without endangering our lives in the process. Believe me, I can, and I will. They were Ardalan's soldiers. They had butchered and pillaged and done more evil than she could stomach. She could do it. She would do it. No, you physically cannot harm them, Aelin. Not right now. They know enough about those word marks to have protected their whole Redding camp from our kind of magic. Wards, like the stones around the fortress, but different. They wear iron everywhere they can. In their weapons, in their armor, they know their enemy well. We might be good, but we can't take them on alone and walk out of those caves alive. Selena paced, running her hands through her rain-wet hair, and then realized he hadn't finished. "Say it," she demanded. Narok is in the very back of the caves, in a private chamber. He's like them, a creature wearing the skin of a man. He sends out his 3 monsters to retrieve the Demi-Fae, and they bring them back to the cave for him to experiment on. She knew then why Rowan had moved her into the trees, far from the beach. Not for safety, but because there was a Demi-Fae in there right now. I tried to cut off her air, to make it easier for her, Rowan said. But they have her in too much iron, and she won't make it through the night. Even if we go in there now, she's already a husk, barely able to breathe. There is no coming back from what they've done. They fed on the very life of her, trapping her in her mind, making her relive whatever horrors and miseries she's already encountered. Dude, this is bad! What the fuck? This is bad! Even the fire in her blood froze. "It truly fed on me that day in the barrows," she whispered. "If I hadn't managed to escape, it would have drained me like that." A low, confirming growl rippled out of Rowan. Nauseated, Selena scrubbed at her face, tipped her head back to the rain trickling in front of the canopy above, then finally took a long breath and faced Rowan. "We cannot kill them with our magic while they're encamped. Wendellin's forces are too far away, and Narok is going after the Demi-Fae with 3 of those monsters, plus 200 soldiers." She was thinking aloud, but Rowan nodded anyway. "How many of the sentries at Mistward have actually seen battle?" 30 or less, and some, like Malachi, are too old, but will fight anyway, and die. Rowan walked deeper into the woods. She followed him, if only because she knew if she took 1 step closer to the beach, she would go after that female. From the tension in Rowan's shoulders, she knew he felt the same. The rain ceased, and Selena pulled back her hood to let the misty air soak into her too hot face. The area was full of shepherds and farmers and fishermen. Aside from the Demi-Fae, there was no one else to fight the creatures. Sorry. They had no advantage, save for knowing their territory better than their enemy. They would send word to Wendelin, of course, and maybe help would arrive in the next week. Rowan held up a fist, and she halted as he scanned the trees ahead and behind them. With expert quietness, he unsheathed one of the blades in his vambraces. The smell hit her a second later, the stench of whatever those creatures were beneath the mortal meat. Only one. Oh, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared! He was so quiet she could hardly hear even with her fey ears. That's not reassuring, she said with equal softness, drawing her own dagger. Rowan pointed. He's coming dead at us. You head to the right for 20 yards, I'll go left. When he's between us, wait for my signal, then strike. No magic. It might attract too much attention if others are nearby. Keep it quick and quiet and fast. Rowan, this thing, quick and quiet and fast. His green eyes flashed, but she held his stare. It fed on me and would have turned me into a husk, she silently said. We could easily meet that fate right now. You were unprepared, he seemed to say, and I was not with you. This is insane. I faced one of the defective ones too, and it almost killed me. Scared, Princess? Yes, and wisely so. But he was right. These were their woods, and they were warriors. This time it would be different. So she nodded, a soldier accepting orders, and did not bother with farewells before she slipped into the trees. She made her footfalls light, counting the distance, listening to the forest around them, keeping her breathing steady. She ducked behind a mossy tree and drew her other blade. The smell deepened into a steady reek that made her head pound. As the clouds overhead cleared further, the starlight faintly illuminated the low-lying mist on the loamy earth. Nothing. She was starting to wonder whether Rowan had been mistaken when the creature appeared between the trees ahead, closer to her than she anticipated. Much, much closer. She felt him first, the smudge of blackness, the silence that enveloped him like an extra cloak. Even the fog seemed to pull away from him. Beneath his hood, she could only glimpse pale skin and sensual lips. He did not bother with weapons, but it was his nails that made her breath catch. Long, sharp nails that she remembered all too well. How they'd felt when they ripped into her in the library. Unlike those nails, these were unbroken, the polished black curves gleaming. The skin on his fingers was bone-white and flawless, too smooth to be natural. Indeed, she could have sworn she saw dark, glittering veins, a mockery of the blood that had once flowed there. Selena didn't bat an eyelash as the thing turned his hooded head toward her. Rowan still didn't give the signal. Did he realize how close it was? A wet trickle of warmth flowed onto her lips from one of her nostrils. She tensed, bracing herself, and wondered how fast he could move and how deeply she would have to slice with her long knives. The sword would be a last resort, and it was more cumbersome, even if using the knives meant getting in close. I'm cold. I'm scared. She scanned the trees, and Selena pressed behind hers. The creature beneath the library had torn through metal doors as if they were curtains, and it knew how to use the word marks. She glanced out in time to see him step toward her tree, the movement deadly elegant and promising a long, painful end. He had not had his mind broken. He still retained the ability to think, to calculate. These things were so good at their work, it seemed that the king had thought only 3 were necessary here. How many others remained hidden on her continent? The forest had fallen so still that she could hear a huffing sound. He was scenting her. Her magic flared and she shoved it down. She didn't want her magic touching this thing, with or without Rowan's command. The creature sniffed again and took another step in her direction. Just like that day at the barrows, the air began to hollow out, pulsing against her ears. Her other nostril began to bleed. Shit. The thought hit her then, and the world stumbled. What if it had gotten to Rowan first? She dared another glance around the tree. The creature was gone. I'm scared. I'm scared. Oh, sorry. Just squirted out some water. I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm scared. Chapter 47. Selena silently swore, scanning the trees. Where in the hell had that creature gone? The rain began again, but the dead... I'm sorry, I'm scared. But the dead scent still clung to everything. She lifted her long dagger to angle it in Rowan's direction, to signal him to indicate whether he was breathing. He had to be. She would accept no other alternative. The blade was so clean she could see her face in it, see the trees and the sky and the... No, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, we don't have to do this. And the creature now standing behind her. Selena pivoted, swiping for its exposed side, one blade angled to sink straight into its ribs, the other slashing for the throat. A move she'd practiced for years and years, as easy as breathing. But its black, depthless eyes met hers, and Selena froze. In her body, her mind, her soul, her magic sputtered and went out. She scarcely heard the damp thud of her blades hitting the earth. The rain on her face dulled to a distant sensation. The darkness around them spread, welcoming, embracing, comforting. The creature pulled back the cowl of its cloak. The face was young and dark, young and male, unearthly perfection. Around his neck, a torque of dark stone, wordstone, she vaguely recalled, gleamed in the rain. This was the god of death incarnate. It was not with any mortal man's expression or voice that he smiled and said, "You." She couldn't look away. There were screams in the darkness, screams she had drowned out for so many years, but now they beckoned. His smile widened, revealing 2 white teeth, and he reached a hand for her throat. So gentle, those icy fingers as his thumb brushed her neck, as he tilted her face up to better stare into her eyes. "Your agony tasted like wine," he murmured, peering into the corpse. Y'all. I'm not gonna say it. But there's an internal war going on inside of me right now. I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say what I'm thinking, but yeah, girl. He murmured, peering into the core of her. Wind was tearing at her face, her arms, her stomach, roaring her name. But there was eternity and calm in his eyes, a promise of such sweet darkness, and she could not look away. It would be a blessed relief to let go. She need only surrender to the dark, just as he asked. "Take it," she wanted to say, tried to say. "Take everything." A flash of silver and steel pierced the inky veil, and another creature, a monster made of fangs and rage and wind, was there, ripping her away. She clawed at him, but he was ice. He was Rowan. Rowan was hauling her away, shouting her name, but she couldn't reach him, couldn't stop that pull toward the other creature. Teeth pierced the spot between her neck and shoulder, and she jerked, latching onto the pain as if it were a rope, yanking her out of the sea of stupor, up, until Rowan crushed her against him with one arm, sword out, her blood dripping down his chin as he backed away from the creature that lingered by the tree. Pain. That was why the body that morning had been marred. The demi-fae had tried to use physical pain to break free of these things, to remind the body of what was real and not real. The creature huffed out a laugh. Oh, God. It had placed her in its thrall. That swiftly, that easily. She hadn't stood a chance, and Rowan wasn't attacking because in the dark, with limited weapons against an enemy who did not need blades to kill them, even Rowan was outmatched. A true warrior knew when to walk away from a fight. Rowan breathed. "We have to run." There was another low laugh from the creature, who stepped closer. Rowan pulled them farther back. "You can try," it said in that voice that did not come from her world. Is that what you're thinking? It's a little hot. He's a little hot. Anyway, that was all Selena needed to hear. She flung out her magic. A wall of flame sprang up as she and Rowan sprinted away, a shield into which she poured every ounce of will and horror and shame, damning the consequences. The creature hissed, but she didn't know if it was due to the light stinging its eyes or merely frustration. She didn't care. It bought them time, a whole minute hurtling uphill through the trees. Then crashing came from behind, the reeking stain of darkness spreading like a web. Rowan knew the woods, knew how to hide their trail. It bought them more time and distance. The creature stalked them, even as Rowan used his wind to blow their scent away. Mile after mile they ran, until their breath was like shards of glass in her lungs, and even Rowan seemed to be tiring. They weren't going to the fortress. No, they wouldn't lead this thing within 10 miles of there. Rather, they headed into the Cambrian mountains, the air growing chilled, the hills steeper. Still, the creature followed. He won't stop, Selena panted, as they hauled themselves up a harrowing incline, almost on all fours. She pushed against the urge to fall to her knees and vomit. He's like a hound on a scent. Her scent. Far below, the thing prowled after them. Rowan bared his teeth, rain slicing down his face. Then I'll run him down until he drops dead. Light illuminating a deer path atop the hill. Lightning illuminated a deer path atop the hill, sorry. Rowan, she panted. Rowan, I have an idea. Selena wondered if she still had a death wish. Or perhaps that god of death just liked to play with her too much. It was another uphill trek to the trees whose bark had been skinned off, and then she made herself a merry fire and burned a torch inside a forgotten road, the light shining through those skinless trees. Far below, she prayed that Rowan was keeping the creature occupied the way she told him to, leading it in circles with the scent on her tunic. Scream. Oh, that's a sound. Scream went the wedding stone down her dagger as she perched atop a large rock. Despite her incessant trembling, she hummed as she sharpened, a symphony she'd gone to see performed in Rifthold every year until her enslavement. She controlled her breathing and focused on counting the minutes, wondering how long she could remain before she had to find another way. Scream! A rotting scent stuffed itself up her nose, and the already quiet forest went still, Scream. Not her own blade sharpening, but another's, almost an answer to her own. She sagged in relief and ran the wedding stone down her dagger one more time before standing, willing strength to her knees. Scream! She did not allow herself to flinch when she beheld the 5 of them standing beyond the skinned trees, tall and lean and bearing their wicked tools. Run, her body screamed, but she held her ground, lifted her chin, and smiled into the dark. I'm glad you received my invitation. Not a hint or sound or movement. Your 4 friends decided to come uninvited to my last campfire, and it didn't end well for them, but I'm sure you already know that. Another one sharpened his blades, firelight shivering on the jagged metal. Fey bitch, we'll take our sweet time with you. She sketched a bow, even though her stomach was heaving at the reek of carrion, and waved her torch as if it were a baton at what awaited below. Oh, I certainly hope you do, she said. Before they could surround her, she burst into a sprint. Selena knew they were near, not because of the crashing brush or the whip of their blades through the air, but from the stench that tore gnarled fingers through her senses. Clutching her torch in one hand, she used the other to keep herself aloft as she bounded down the steep road, dodging rocks and brambles and loose stones. It was a mile down to where she'd told Rowan to lead the creature, a mad flight through the dark. Ankles and knees barking in protest, she leapt and ran, the walkers closing in around her like wolves on a deer. The key was not to panic. Panic made you stupid. Panic got you killed. There was a piercing cry, a hawk's screech. Rowan was exactly where they'd planned, the king's creature perhaps a minute behind and slinking through the brush, right by the creek, where she dumped her torch, right where the road curved around a boulder. The ancient road went one way, but she went another. A wind shoved past, going in the direction of the road. She threw herself behind a tree, a hand over her mouth to keep her jagged breaths contained as the wind pushed her scent away. A heartbeat later, a hard body enveloped hers, shielding and sheltering, and then 5 pairs of bare feet slithered along the road, after the scent that now darted and hurtled down to the creature running right at them. She pressed her face into Rowan's chest. His arms were solid as walls, his assortment of weapons just as reassuring. At last, he tugged at her sleeve, nudging her upward, to climb. In a few deft movements, she hauled herself up the tree to a wide branch near its top. A moment later, Rowan was behind her, sitting against the trunk. He pulled her against him, her back to his chest as he folded his arms around her, hiding her scent from the monsters raging below. A minute passed before the screaming began. Bleeding shrieks and shouts and roars of 2 different sets of monsters who knew death was upon them, and the face it bore was not kind. For the better part of half an hour, the creatures fought in the rainy dark, until those wretched shrieks turned victorious, and the unearthly roars sounded no more. So who won? For the better part of half an hour, the creatures fought in the rainy dark until those wretched shrieks turned victorious, and the unearthly roars sounded no more. Selena and Rowan held tight to each other and did not dare close their eyes for the entirety of the night. Your reading voice is top tier. Ah, thank you. So who won? I'm guessing the walkers won? Anyway, chapter 48. That was a lot. That was a lot. That was a lot. I was stressed that whole time. My heart was pounding. I want Dorian content. I'm tired of not hearing anything from Dorian and Sorsha. I want more Dorian content. Chapter 48. There was no uproar, no hysteria when they told the fortress what they discovered. Malachi immediately dispatched messengers to Wendellin's king to beg for help, the other demi-fae settlements to order those who could not fight to flee, and to the healer's compound to help every single patient who was not bedbound evacuate. Messengers returned from the king, promising as many men as could be spared. It was a relief, Selena thought, but a bit of a terror too. If Galen showed up, if any of her others' kin arrived here, her mother's, sorry, she wouldn't care. She told herself there were bigger matters at hand, so she prayed for their swift arrival and prepared with the rest of the fortress's residents. They would face the threat head-on, starting by taking out the 200 mortal soldiers that accompanied Narak and his 3 creatures as soon as they left their protected caves. Rowan seized control of the fortress with no fuss, only gratitude. From the others, actually. Even Malachi thanked the prince as Rowan set about organizing rotations, delegating tasks, and planning their survival. They had a few days until reinforcements arrived, and they could launch their assault. But should their enemy march sooner, Rowan wanted them slowed down and incapacitated as much as possible until help arrived. The demi-fae were not any army. And did not have the resources of a fully stocked fortress, so Rowan declared they'd make do with what they did possess, their wits, determination, and knowledge of the terrain. From the sound of it, somehow, the walkers had brought down one of the creatures, so they weren't truly invincible. Oh, damn. Well, you can't be very strong if those walkers can take them down. Damn. He's weak as shit. But without a body, the following morning they had learned how it had been killed. Rowan and Selena went out with the small groups that were preparing for the forest preparing the forest for the attack. If Narak's force was going to take the deer path to sack the fortress, then they'd find themselves taking it through pitfall-laden territory, through glens of venomous creatures, over concealed holes full of spikes, and into snares at every turn. It might not kill them, but it would slow them down enough to buy more time for aid to come. And should they wind up under siege, there was a secret tunnel leading out of the fortress itself, so ancient and neglected that most of the residents hadn't even known it existed until Malachi mentioned it. It was better than nothing. A few days later, Rowan assembled a small group of captains around a table in the dining hall. Bass's scouting team reported that the creatures look like they're readying to move in a few days, he said, pointing to a map. Are the first and second miles of traps almost done? The captains gave their confirmation. Good. Tomorrow I want your men preparing the next few miles too. Sorry, y'all. My words are starting to slur. Standing beside Rowan, Selena watched as he led them through the meeting, keeping track of all the various legs and arms of their plan, not to mention remembering all the names of the captains, their soldiers, and what they were responsible for. He remained calm and steady, fierce even, despite the hell that might soon be upon them. Glancing at the demi-fae assembled, their only attention wholly on Rowan, she could see that they clung to the steadiness, that cold determination and clever mind, and centuries of experience. She envied him for it, and beneath that, with a growing heaviness she could not control, she wished that when she left this continent, she wouldn't go alone. Get some sleep. You're no use to me completely dazed. She blinked. She'd been staring at him. The meeting was over. The captains already walking away to attend to their various tasks. Sorry, she rubbed her eyes. They'd been up since before dawn, readying the last few miles of path, checking that all the traps were secure. Working with him was so effortless. There was no judgment, no need to explain herself. She knew no one would ever replace Nehemiah, and she never wanted anyone to. But Rowan made her feel better, as if she could finally breathe after months of suffocating. Yet now, he was still watching her, frowning. Just say it. She examined the map on the table between them. We can handle the mortal soldiers, but those creatures and the rock. If we had Fey warriors, like your companion, who came to receive his tattoo. She didn't think calling him Rowan's kitty cat friend would help her case this time. Or all 5 of your... How do you say that word? Catter? C-A-D-R-E. I've never seen that word in my entire life. Catter? Is that how you say it? That's how I think it's pronounced. Yes? Okay. Even it could turn the tide. She traced the line of mountains that separated these lands from the immortal ones beyond. But you've not sent for them. Why? You know why. Would Maeve order you home out of spite for the demi-fae? His jaw tightened. For a few reasons, I think. And this is the person you chose to serve. I knew what I was doing when I drank her blood to seal the oath. Then let's hope Wendelin's reinforcements get here quickly. She pursed her lips and turned to go to their room. He gripped her wrist. Catter? Oh, Catter, okay. Catter, okay. Don't do that. A muscle feathered in his jaw. Don't look at me like that. Like what? With that disgust. I'm not. But he gave her a sharp look. She sighed. All this, Rowan. She waved a hand to the map, to the doors the demi-fae had passed through, to the sounds of people readying their supplies and defenses in the courtyard. For whatever it's worth, all of this just proves that she doesn't deserve you. I think you know that too. He looked away. That isn't your concern. I know, but I thought you should still hear it. He didn't respond, wouldn't even meet her eyes, so she walked away. She looked over her shoulder once, to find him still hunched over the table, hands braced on its surface, the powerful muscles of his back visible through his shirt, and she knew he wasn't looking at the map. Not really. But saying that she wished he could return with her to Ardalan, to Terrasen, was pointless. He had no way to break his oath to Maeve, unless that bitch dies, unless that bitch croaks. Wait, what? What? Dre, like Dr. Dre. If that bitch dies, then he doesn't have to serve anybody. And she had nothing to entice him with, even if he could. Sorry, she was not a queen. She had no plans to be one. And even if she had a kingdom to give him, if he were free, telling him all that was useless. So she left Rowan in the hall, but it did not stop her from wishing she could keep him. Damn. Sarah, I love you. The next afternoon, after washing her face and bandaging a burn on her forearm in Rowan's room, Selena was just coming down to help with the dinner preparations when she felt, rather than heard, the ripple of silence through the fortress. Oh, fuck. Deeper and... Okay, all I'm saying, Luca, Malachi, Emrys, do not touch them. Luca, Malachi, Emrys, do not touch them. Y'all, I'm so serious. Do not touch them. Do not touch them. Oh, God, no, I'm so scared. Deeper and heavier than the nervous quiet that had hovered over the compound the last few days. The fortress had not been this tense since the first night Maeve had been here. It was too soon for her aunt to be checking on her. She had little to show so far other than a few somewhat useful tricks in her various shields. She took the stairs 2 at a time until she reached the kitchen. If Maeve learned about the invasion and ordered Rowan to leave, breathing, thinking, those were the key tools to enduring this encounter. The heat and yeasty scent hit her as she bounded down the last steps, slowing her gait, lifting her chin. Even though she doubted her aunt would condescend to meet in the kitchen. unless she wanted her unbalanced, but Maeve was not in the kitchen. Rowan was, and his back was to her as he stood at the other end with Emrys, Malachi, and Luca, talking quietly. Selena stopped dead as she beheld Emrys' too pale face, the hand gripping Malachi's arm. As Rowan turned to her, lips thin and eyes wide with shock and horror and grief, the world stopped dead too. What is going on? What's 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 going on? No, I'm scared. Do y'all know how awful things must be if Rowan is showing it on his face? If he's showing it on his face, they're already lost. If he's showing it on his face, they're dead. I'm freaking out, y'all. I'm freaking out. I'm about to roll down the windows. I need air. I'm freaking out. Okay, but Emrys, Malachi, and Luca are all there, so no one died. No one died. It's just something unexpected. Something unexpected. They're not dead. Okay. Rowan's arms hung slack at his sides, his fingers clenching and unclenching. For a heartbeat, she wondered if she went back upstairs. Whatever he had to say would not be true. Rowan took a step toward her. One step, and that was all it took before she began shaking her head, before she lifted her hands in front of her as if to push him away. "Please," she said, and her voice broke. "Please." What? Please what? I don't understand what's going on! I don't understand! Rowan kept approaching, the bearer of some inescapable doom, and she knew that she could not outrun it, and could not fall on her knees and beg for it to be undone. What? Rowan stopped within reach, but did not touch her, his features hardening again, not from cruelty, because he knew, she realized, that one of them had to hold it together. He needed to be calm, needed to keep his wits about him for this. Rowan swallowed once, twice. There was an uprising at the Kalikula labor camp. Oh my God, every single one of those bitches is dead, aren't they? Every single one of those bitches died, huh? Oh, goddamn. Oh my God. Every single one of those bitches is dead. Every single one of them. Oh my God. Oh my God. What? Like what? Her heart stumbled on a beat. After Princess Nehemiah was assassinated, they say a slave girl killed her overseer and sparked an uprising. The slaves seized the camp. He took a shallow breath. The king of Ardalan sent 2 legions to get the slaves under control. And they killed them all. Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. Oh my God. When I get my hands on this bitch king, y'all. Oh my God. Oh my God. And now she's gonna blame herself. Because she's gonna think if Nehemiah had never died, then this would have never happened. But you know what? Oh, it's not her fault. God. The slaves killed the legions? A push of breath. Is she dumb? I'm sorry. There were thousands of slaves in Kalikula. All of them together would be a mighty force, even for 2 of Ardalan's legions. With horrific gentleness. Oh, I'm so sorry. This bitch really said, did they? Damn. Okay. Rowan grasped her hand. No. The soldiers killed every slave in Kalikula. The crack in the world, through which a keening wail pushed in like a wave. There are thousands of people enslaved in Kalikula. The resolve in Rowan's countenance splintered as he nodded, and when he opened and closed his mouth, she realized it was not over. No! The only word she could breathe was, Endivere? It was a fool's plea. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh no. Oh no, no, no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Are you kidding me? Slowly, so slowly, Rowan shook his head. Once he got word of the uprising in Ilwi, the king of Ardalan sent 2 other legions north. None were spared in Endivere. Oh my God! Philly! God! Oh. God! Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Are you actually shitting on my dick? Kidding me? I don't even want to read anymore. I'm so mad. I'm so mad. I don't even want to read this fucking book anymore. I'm so mad. I'm so mad. I'm so mad. I hate him. I hate him. Let me get him. Let me at him. Give me 5 minutes with him. Dead. She did not see Rowan's face when he gripped her arms as if he could keep her from falling into the abyss. No, all she could see were the slaves she'd left behind. Now I'm gonna cry. See, I was mad, and now I'm sad, and I'm gonna start crying now. I hate everything about this series. It really truly never gets better. It's just like one thing after another, after another, after another, after another, and it's just yeah. Yeah. Now, No, all she could see were the slaves she'd left behind, the ashy mountains and those mass graves dug every day, the faces of her people who had worked beside her, her people whom she had left behind, whom she had let herself forget, had let suffer, who had prayed for salvation, holding out hope that someone, anyone, would remember them. She had abandoned them, and she had been too late. Nehemiah's people, the people of other kingdoms, and her people, the people of Terrasen, the people her father and mother and court had loved so fiercely. There had been rebels in Endivere, rebels who fought for her kingdom when she had been... There were children in Endivere, in Kalakula. She had not protected them. The kitchen walls and ceiling crushed her, the air too thin, too hot. Rowan's face swam as she panted. Faster and faster. He murmured her name too softly for the others to hear, and the sound of it, that name that had once been a promise to the world, the name she had spat on and defiled, the name she did not deserve. She tore off his grip, and then she was walking out the kitchen door, across the courtyard, through the ward stones, and along the invisible barrier, until she found a spot just out of sight of the fortress. The world was full of screaming and wailing, so loud she drowned in it. Selena did not utter a sound as she unleashed her magic on the barrier, a blast that shook the trees and set the earth rumbling. She fed her power into the invisible wall, begging the ancient stones to take it, to use it. The wards, as if sensing her intent, devoured her power whole. Oh shit, we're buffering. I don't know how long. Oh shit, we're buffering. I don't know how long we've been buffering for. I hope y'all heard that, because I'm not reading it again. That was so sad. We've been buffering for. I hope y'all heard that, because I'm not reading it again. That was so sad. I don't want to read that anymore. It truly never gets better, does it? Truly never gets better. Chapter 49. For weeks now, Cale hadn't had any contact with any of his friends, allies, whatever they had been. So, one last time, Cale slipped into the rhythm of his old duties. One last time? Though it was more difficult than ever to oversee the king's luncheons. I never knew how to say that word. Luncheons? Is it luncheons? I think it's luncheons. Though making his reports was an effort of will, he did it. He had heard nothing from Adian or Ren, and still hadn't yet asked Dorian to use his magic to test out their theories about the spell. He was starting to wonder if he was done playing his part in Aylin's growing rebellion. He'd gathered enough information, crossed enough lines. Perhaps it was time to learn what could be done from Anil. He would be closer to Morath, dumb, and maybe he could uncover what the king was brewing down there. The king had accepted his plans to take up his mantle as heir to Anil with hardly any objections. Soon, he was to present options for a replacement. Cale was currently standing guard at a state luncheon in the great hall which Adian and Dorian were both attending. The doors had been thrown open to welcome in the spring air, and Cale's men were standing at each one, weapons at the ready. Everything was normal. Everything was going smoothly, until the king stood, his black ring seeming to gobble up the midday sun streaming in through the towering windows. He lifted a goblet, and the room fell silent. Not in the way it did when Adian spoke. Cale hadn't been able to stop thinking about what the general had said to him about choosing a side, or what Dorian had said about his refusal to accept Selena and the prince for what they really were. Over and over again he contemplated it. But nothing could prepare Cale, or anyone in that silent hall, as the king smiled to the tables below his dais and said, "Good news arrived this morning from Ilwi and the north. The Calicula slave rebellion has been dealt with." They'd heard nothing of it, and Cale wished he could cover his ears as the king said, "We'll have to work to replenish the mines there and in Endivir, but the rebel taint has been purged." Cale was glad he was leaning against the pillar. It was Dorian who spoke, his face bone-white. "What are you talking about?" His father smiled at him. "Forgive me. It seems the slaves in Calicula got it into their heads to start an uprising after Princess Nehemiah's unfortunate death. We got it into our heads not to allow it, or any other potential uprisings, as we didn't have the resources to devote to interrogating each and every slave to weed out the traitors." Cale understood what strength it took for Dorian not to shake his head in horror as he did the calculations, and understood just how many people had been slaughtered. "General Ash River," the king said. Adian sat motionless. "You and your Bane will be pleased to know that since the purge in Endivir, many of the rebels in your territory have ceased their antics. It seems they did not want a fate similar to that of their friends in the mines." Cale didn't know how Adian found the courage and will, but the general smiled and bowed his head. "Thank you, Majesty." "Get my man out of there. Get my man out of there." I love him so much. I love him so much. I know this isn't the time to be happy. I know what we just went through, but I am glad for this little break. Although it's not going to be a break. Dorian's obviously going to go cry about the slaves to Sorsha. So it's going to be sad. But at least I'm going to get some Dorian Sorsha content right now. Dorian burst into Sorsha's workroom. She jumped from her spot at the table, a hand on her chest. "Did you hear?" he asked, shutting the door behind him. Her eyes were red enough to suggest that she had. He took her face in his hands, pressing his brow against hers, needing that cool strength. He didn't know how he'd kept from weeping or vomiting or killing his father on the spot, but looking at her, breathing in her rosemary and mint scent, he knew why. Stop. Oh my God, stop. "I want you out of this castle," he said. "I'll give you the funds, but I want you away from here as soon as you can find a way to go without raising suspicion." She yanked out of his grasp. "Are you mad?" "No. He'd never seen anything more clearly. If you stay, if we are caught, I will give you whatever money you need. No money you could offer could convince me to leave. I'll tie you to a horse if I have to. I'm getting you out. And who will look after you? Who will make your tonics? You're not even talking to the captain anymore. How would I leave now? He gripped her shoulders. She had to understand. He had to make her understand. Her loyalty was one of the things he loved, but now it would only get her killed. He murdered thousands of people in one sweep. Imagine what he'll do if he finds you've been helping me. There are worse things than death, Sorsha. Please, please, just go. Her fingers found his, entwining tight. Come with me. I can't. It'll get worse if I leave. If my brother is made heir, and I know of some people who might be trying to stop him. If I'm here, perhaps I can help them in some way. Oh, Kale. He understood completely now why he had sent Selena to Wendelin. Understood that his return to Anil, Kale had sold himself to get Selena to safety. If you stay, I stay, Sorsha said. You cannot convince me otherwise. Please, he said, because he didn't have it in him to yell, not with the deaths of those people hanging over him. Please. But she brushed her thumb across his cheek. Together. We'll face this together. And it was selfish and horrible of him. But he put up no further argument. Oh, she's gonna die. No! No! She's gonna die, isn't she? Y'all, are you for real? I can't take this. I can't do this no more, y'all. I can't do this. I'm not strong enough for this. I can't do this. I can't do this. No! I'm gonna pass out. I'm so stressed out right now. Kale went to the tomb for privacy, to mourn, to scream, but he was not alone. Adian was sitting on the steps of the spiral stairwell, his forearms braced on his knees. He didn't turn as Kale set down his candle and sat beside him. What do you suppose? Adian breathed, staring into the darkness. The people on other continents, across all of those seas, think of us. Do you think they hate us or pity us for what we do to each other? Perhaps it's just as bad there. Perhaps it's worse. But to do what I have to do, to get through it, I have to believe it's better. Somewhere, it's better than this. Kale had no answer. Kale's teeth gleamed in the light. I've been forced to do many, many things. Depraved, despicable things, sorry. Yet nothing made me feel as filthy as I did today. Thanking that man for murdering my people. There was nothing he could say to console him. Nothing he could promise. So Kale left Adian staring into the dark. Are you kidding me? He just left him? Are you kidding me? God damn! There was not one empty seat in the Royal Theatre that night. Every box. Kip said adios. Adios. Adios, amigo. Every box and tier was crammed with nobility, merchants, whoever could afford the ticket. Jewels and silk gleamed in the light of the glass chandeliers, the riches of a conquering empire. The news about the slave massacres had struck that afternoon, spreading through the city on a wave of murmuring, leaving only silence behind. The upper tiers of the theater were unusually still, as if the audience had come to be soothed, to let the music sweep away the stain of the news. Only the boxes were full of chatter about what this meant for the fortunes of those seated in the plush crimson velvet chairs, debates over where the new slaves would come from to ensure there was no pause in labor, and about how they should treat their own slaves afterward. Despite the chiming bells and the raising and dimming of the chandeliers, it took the boxes far longer to quiet than usual. They were still talking when the red curtains pulled back to reveal the seated orchestra, and it was a miracle they bothered to applaud for the conductor as he hobbled across the stage. That was when they noticed that every musician on the stage was wearing mourning black. That was when they shut up, and when the conductor raised his arms. It was not a symphony that filled the cavernous space. It was the song of Ilwi, then the song of Fenharrow, of Melisande, and Terrasin, each nation that had people in those labor camps, and finally, not for pomp or triumph, but to mourn what they had become, they played the song of Ardalan. When the final note finished, the conductor turned to the crowd, the musicians standing with him. As one, they looked to the boxes, to all those jewels bought with the blood of a continent, and without a word, without a bow or another gesture, they walked off the stage. The next morning, by royal decree, the theater was shut down. Of course it was. No one saw those musicians or their conductor again. Well, these were a depressing couple of chapters. If I do say so myself, fighting back tears. How do you just slaughter thousands of people and sleep through the night? I will never know. I'm mad. Y'all, hold on, because I'm gonna start crying. I'm mad because Selena will never get to go back and free those people. Those people will never be able to be free ever again. I mean, technically they're free in death, but they deserved to be freed from the camps alive. I'm mad. Not having a good time processing this. It's not fun. It's not fun. It's not having a good time. So yeah, fuck this book, fuck this series, fuck SJM, fuck the King of Ardalan. I'm gonna stop there before I get banned for bullying and harassment. They're fictional characters. TikTok, it's a book. It's a book. Selena will never get to, she'll never get to have her promise. What I'm not looking forward to is reading how bad this is going to affect her, because she was on the come up, and now I fear she's going back to rock bottom. So yeah, very, 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 very sad day today. Oh, y'all, this is ridiculous. Selena will never get back a lot of things, honestly. Yeah, I'm starting to see that. I feel like we're all participating in your torture. It's okay, because at least y'all get some entertainment out of me being tormented by these books. Thank you, Ale. What is the reason, y'all? What is the reason for this? Thank you, Sarah. I literally cannot. This is ridiculous. But we're almost done with the book, I fear. I fear for everyone's safety. And are we on the last 100 pages? Are we on the last 100 pages? We are. Oh, Jesus. I really don't want to read this book anymore. We're in the last 100 pages. Shit's about to go down. But you know what? I feel like this is, instead of knocking Selena down and her going back to just being like a husk of a person, I feel like this is going to make her mad. And it's going to make her, well, obviously it's going to make her mad, but like, it's going to make her be able to hone her anger and her grief and take what, what's his name? Her brother has been teaching her and making it as her motivation to to knock down this piece of shit king. So that's what I think is gonna happen. I don't think she's gonna go back to being that, yes, her brother, to being that, you know, not able to do anything through, or not being able to work through her grief, you know? I did call him her brother because he might as well be. They are related. I don't care how distantly it is. And you will never hear the end of it from me. Honestly, you will never hear the end of it about how they're related, because I am just so mad that she had to put that in there. I'm so mad that she had to make them related. Honestly. God, why? Why did she have to do that? No be no. Yes. Like, why? Why? Anyway. I'm so sad. Y'all, this is so sad. How many pages are in the next one? Tell me right now. We only have 4 more lives. Y'all, we might be able to finish this book before I go on vacation. And then whenever I get back, we can start Queen of Shadows. 4 more lives. I can't go live tomorrow, but I can on Wednesday and Thursday. Oh, never mind, because we leave on Saturday. Today's Monday. Yeah, never mind. I don't think we'll be able to fix it. I don't know. Yeah, no, I don't think we'll be able to finish it. You cannot continue today without doing a few chapters. No, and I've already been reading for 2 hours, so it's okay. We don't have to, we're gonna stop for today, and physically, I cannot take any more of this sadness that is going on right here. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Actually, maybe I can go live tomorrow after I'm done babysitting. It would just be really late. It would probably be like at 7:30. But the sun doesn't really go down in Texas until like 9. I leave for vacation Saturday morning at 4:30 in the morning. I'm good with the late life. No, I don't want to read without y'all on my vacation. I don't think I have any more alone chapters. I miss so many being in the UK. Oh, thanks for joining today. At least I'm uploading them on YouTube. I don't know if y'all know that I've been uploading them on YouTube. All my lives. I think I'm actually caught up. Not caught up, but like I'm missing like only 1 or 2 lives. So all my lives from not Air Fire. All my lives from Crown of Midnight are up. All my lives from Air of Fire, except for the one I did yesterday, are up. So I couldn't upload some of them because of my phone lagging and them not being saved. Because if it buffers too much during the lives, TikTok doesn't save them. So yeah, they're all up on my YouTube. Oh, thank you. But yeah, y'all, this shit is whack. This shit is whack. Oh yeah, there's a couple on my Instagram too. Like if I, sometimes when TikTok is deciding to just knock me down and beat me up, I will have to go to Instagram Live and do my lives there. And then since it gives me the option to just upload them, there's some in my IGTV that I've uploaded. But yeah, that's it for today. Y'all, it's been a while since these books have emotionally drained me, and I feel like this book emotionally drained me today. I'm just like, also, I got this shirt at Target. Can you believe that Target is repping Inuyasha? Hello? It literally has my 3 husbands right here. Yes, I think Naraku is cute. Sesshomaru was literally like, a 6-year-old me was like foaming at the mouth for him. And also Koga's episode, hello. Yes. Oh, but yeah, and then it does have Inuyasha right there and Kagome. But that's it. It has all the DILFs. All the dilfs are up here. Yup. That's really the only reason I got it, because of all the dilfs. But yes, it's at Target. I don't know if it has it at y'all's Target, but it's at Target, and it was $12.99, and I got it. And I went to Goodwill the other day, which I probably shouldn't have, but I went to Goodwill before my car broke down, and I went to Goodwill before my cat had to be taken to the emergency room last night. So I went to Goodwill and I spent like $100, and I bought Loki an altar that I will be building tonight. I think he's getting upset with me, but I bought him like a little place to put offerings and stuff, because I don't have a lot of space to work with at home, so I don't have room for like a shelf. But I did buy him a little thing that I could put on a shelf that I do have in my room. Anyway, I bought him that, and then I got like a lot of clothes, and I only spent like $100. I can do a TikTok of me assembling it, because that's what I was gonna do anyway. I need to go home and make, oh my god, Ale, I can use your cleansing spray on it. The cleansing spray that you sent me, I can use it on it. I still have it. I use it whenever I'm feeling like crap, and I spray it on it, and it really does help me it helps make me feel better. It helps me get my ass up. My cat is okay, but yeah, last night whenever I was feeding him dinner, he was not, like, usually it's one of the kittens, and usually they sprint to like my room. I feed them in there because my other cats will eat their food, so I feed them in my room, and they usually sprint, and he was just laying on this chair that we have in our kitchen, and he was literally, ma'am, you need to cleanse your car. No, you are absolutely right, I do need to. I still have not. Anyway, so he was just laying there, kind of just like and then I went up to see if he was okay, and he wasn't. He was like really hot, and his tongue was sticking out, and he was like drooling, and he had like boogers coming out of his nose, and I was freaking out. And it was like it was late, so it was like after all the vets were closed, and so I was like, I called the only emergency hospital that we have, the emergency like vet clinic that we have here is 24 hours, and I had to take him in, and it turns out that he has something called Calicium virus, which is super common in cats, and so I spent $300 freaking for a little cat flu, and so now he gets medication every 8 hours because he had like ulcers in his mouth, and so I'm giving him like these, I have to like squirt it in his mouth, and it's like, it just helps with the pain. Like, there's nothing else that we can do, and he'll get over it. B, can you see my profile picture? I cannot. Hold on. What about it? Who is that? Who is that? Oh, is that Eddie? Oh, that's Eddie. With fire? Oh. Aww. No, emergency vets are ridiculously expensive. I asked on the phone, I was like, how much is it going to be? Because like, I did not have like a ton of money to like spend. So I needed to know how much it was going to be. And she was like, the base fee is $200. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? $200? And then I think the nurse felt bad for me because, well, his temperature was extremely high. So like, she told me that cat's temperature normally is 102, 103. His temperature was almost at 107. 107! And we had no idea how long it had been like that. And so she was like, if you want, we can do a test to see if his organs were damaged. And I was like, yes, please. So that was like another $100. And I was like, but I don't care, because like my baby was like, I needed to know if he was okay. And my mom was like, don't do it. And I was like, I need to know if he's okay, because she was like, if they have high fever, sometimes it can cause internal damage. And I was like, I need to know. Yeah. So yeah. Yes, his fever was so high. But then we got home, and this motherfucker was up fucking bouncing off the walls. So he feels fine now. Like, he's not sick anymore. He is sick, but he's not acting sick anymore. And this morning, he was chewing on my toes in the morning, and he was bouncing around. So I think he's okay. I think he'll be okay. The vet said it was super common in cats. But the only reason, because we were there for like almost 3 hours last night, was because they couldn't get his temperature back down to like a normal level as fast as they thought they were going to be able to. And so I was in the waiting room stressing, because I was like, I thought this was supposed to be like a little flu, and now it's taking 3 hours for y'all to, but yeah. No, yeah, I'm constantly coming to Target and buying cat litter. I have 4 cats at home, and it's just like there is never enough litter in that fucking house. I'm just going through it. I need to think of an alternative or something because it's expensive, so expensive, buying all this shit constantly. Yeah, they are worth it. Absolutely, they're worth it, my babies. My mom's like, I don't know how you do it. And I'm like, I literally do it because they are my children. Dr. Esley on Amazon, $20 for a big bag. It's the best. I'll look it up. I've heard of pine pellets, but I don't. My thing is, I don't like the smell. So I buy stuff to like help cover up the smell, and I pour like that baking soda stuff on top so that it doesn't smell. Like, I know that the litter box is gonna smell because it's literally a box full of shit, but I don't want it to smell like cat pee. You know, I hate the smell of cat pee. So I usually get like litter that helps block the smell, but it's like not really scented, because I know that kind of messes with them a little. Dr. Elsie? Okay, I'll look that up and see, because yeah, it's so expensive, this cat litter. And I buy the big like 45-pound box of cat litter, and it lasts me about a week or two. But granted, I do have really big litter boxes. Quality is top tier. I know. And then I tried that pretty litter. Yeah, I saw so many. This was back when I only had Marcy and Simon, not before, like before she had her kittens. So I could have, you know, I wasn't going through so much litter. I tried that pretty litter. It smells horrible. It doesn't. Okay, the litter itself smells nasty. I hated the way it smelled. And then it didn't cover up the smell enough for me. It said it did, but it did not. It didn't clump. So I felt like it got dirty faster because the pee was staying in there and it was all mixed up and stuff. I was really only scooping out the poop. Yeah, it was just, I did not like it at all. At all. I did not like it. That's what I was thinking too, that I can train my cats to use the toilet, because this is ridiculous. I hate when it doesn't clump. That's so, yes. And people are like, oh, I hate clumpy litter. Like, my litter it all bunches up, and that's if you don't clean it, girl. Get in there and scoop it every day. I never have issues with my litter being like extreme, like the entire bottom being clumped. And I have 4 cats. Just scoop it. I'm gonna have to start cleaning it twice a day, actually, because they only use our main litter box in the living room, and they don't use the one in my room. So all 4 cats pee and poop in just that one litter box. And yeah, it's yeah. I love my cats, but oh my gosh. Anyway, all right, y'all. I will see y'all hopefully tomorrow. I don't want to schedule a live because I don't know exactly what time I'm going to be out, like done babysitting. So I will it's probably going to be around 7:30, because that's usually the time her mom gets home, but I can't say for sure. So just, I can't schedule anything because TikTok punishes me if I don't go live on time. So just be looking out or aware that around 7:30 Central Time, I will be going live if she gets home around that time. And I'll let you guys know sometimes she gets home around 6:30. But I'll let you guys know for sure. I'll post it on like my Instagram story. I post a lot on my Instagram story, so if you guys don't follow me on my Insta, I post like updates a lot on there. But yeah, because I want to finish this book. I do want to finish this book before I go on vacation, so that way when I come back, we can just start Queen of Shadows, Queen of Shadows, and we can just jump right through it. I might be going live tomorrow after I'm done babysitting. I'm going to try to go live tomorrow after I'm done babysitting. It just depends on what time the mom gets home. She can either get home around 6:30, or she can get home around 7:30. So somewhere around between 6 and 7:30 to possibly 8, I'll be going live tomorrow. Because I want to finish this book. I want to finish this book before I leave. And then when I come back, we can start Queen of Shadows. But yep, that's it for today. Right. I'm gonna go home and watch all the Star Wars movies. The prequel Star Wars movies again, because brain rot I have, sorry, I could not get the words out. The brain rot I have right now for Anakin, it's ridiculous. So I'm gonna go home and watch Star Wars. And I will see y'all hopefully tomorrow. I love Hayden. I love that man so much. It's not enough to love Anakin Skywalker. I have to fuck him. I have to fuck that man. Did you watch Yasha? Oh, the Inuyasha sequel. I started watching it. They lost me with the Rin Sesshomaru thing. They lost me with that. I did not finish it because of that. It was disgusting to me. I never saw them that way. She was 16 when that would have happened. And it ruined the show for me. It really did. And that's what I was scared of with the time skip that they did. And knowing that Sesshomaru had 2 kids, I was worried that they were going to do that with Rin. And then they did. And it was, oh God, it gave me such an ick. And it was, she was a child. They turned my man into a predator for no reason. I was so mad. And that's a whole other can of worms that we're opening up right now. I was so mad that they did that. And it just ruined the entire show for me. It ruined the entire show. Because he never saw her like that. He never saw her like that. She was a child. No. Because when he first meets Rin, she's a child. Like, little. Like, I would say like 10. She's like 10 years old, I think. No, she's probably older than that. But she was still a child. So it was like, she was definitely, no, I think she might have even been younger than 10. Basically, she was a child when he first meets her and saves her life. And then she joins him on his quests. But they never hint at a romantic relationship between them because they're children. And then suddenly when she turns 16 or 18, however old she is when she gives birth, he's still known her since she was a child. It's still weird. And I hated that they did that. So I didn't finish watching the show. I watched like a couple episodes and then I got that spoiled for me. And I was like, and so I choose to believe that show does not exist. And this is the only show in the Inuyasha series or world that exists to me. Because no, that was disgusting what they did. No. All right. Anyway, sorry to rant. I will see y'all tomorrow. I'll let you know what time on my Instagram story. Yeah. Going to always be my heart. I love her and her feistiness. She's the only woman on here. Sango. Yo, hold on. This is my bitch right here. Y'all wanna know who my bitch is? This is my bitch right here. Kikyo. Love her. Anyway, okay. Bye. Love y'all. See y'all tomorrow.